say today is not only historic because he is the first former president to be indicted, but because he is the first former president to have behaved criminally in terms of obfuscating about a hush money payment to Stormy Daniels while he was on the campaign trail. We have to remember that though this is
Now that a former president who is being indicted has officially turned himself in, and I want to let you guys know right now, I am making this video on Tuesday afternoon. So anything that occurs over the course of the next few hours will probably not be included unless added in by way of emergency. This video will more than likely be released on Wednesday evening to also go out with another video, which is going to be an extension of the video that is being released today here on Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's an extension of the conversation that I was having about Anna Kasparian's little meltdown with Cenk, how it is they claim they have a hard time talking to people on the opposite side of the aisle. I wonder why. We'll be talking more about that tomorrow to go along with this one here. But I want you to know right now that this video right here, even though I've made several little reactions to them, I'll leave them all in the description box, is not meant to be a red pill. It's not meant to be a black pill, but believe it or not, very, very much a white pill. Also, something else too. At the very end of the video, I'm going to be explaining what our current fearless leader or toothless leader meant by this here.
You just have to demonstrate that he will not take power if he does run, making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become the next president again.
We'll get to that soon, but let me go ahead and tell you guys how this video is going to go. Number one, it is going to be a relatively lengthy one. We're going to be hopping behind the computer for most of it. We're going to be looking at something that Charlie Kirk said, actually 2 or 3 things that he said last night on Timcast IRL, which of course would be Monday night. See how this video is being released on Wednesday. We're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at his take on the Electoral College, seeing how the census has given Republicans an advantage, and why it is that this right here could very, very well be purely political, hence the mere fact that they will not be releasing the mugshot, because obviously if they release the mugshot, you would basically be putting him in a cultural icon status as these individuals here. We'll be talking about the current polling metrics that Trump is at, but we'll be discussing that before we get into the actual conversation on the Timcast IRL. We're going to be looking at the NBC 2020 swing, the election map, because a lot of what Kirk was saying is true, and I've been trying to convey this message over, but I now have the means and the actual thought process on exactly how I'm going to present that to you, so make sure you guys stick around for all that. Also, Robert Barnes had a take this morning that came out with him and Viva Fry that I personally thought was very interesting, because there's a lot of information that's not being mentioned on any of the news networks. And also we got to talk about Tim Pools' hyperbolic CW talk, because once again, it's back up there again. And at the end of the video, we're going to be addressing some very, very small things, from the Ben Shapiro take to obviously what you're seeing right now in some of these video clips, the circus that's going on out there. Savannah Hernandez, I think, kind of caught the worst of it. Now, with that right there being said, let's go ahead and hop behind the computer and get started. Now, guys, you were seeing my MacBook Air screen, but let me go ahead and show you guys this. These right here are the recent polling averages. I'm showing it to you because I want you guys to see this. Now, there is one poll where Trump's favorability went down a lot. However, this was like 3 days after there was a Rasmussen poll where his favorability was close to 55%. I don't trust the 57 or 51 numbers, but still at the same time, he's enjoying a lot of GOP primary support right now. It's kind of confirming what he's been saying. Now, turnout is what wins elections, not polls. But still at the same time, though, Trump is your turnout machine. I just figured I would throw that out there. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what Charlie Kirk was saying to Tim Pool, and there's even 2 sides here that we're going to be looking at. So you're probably going to see one clip get cut off and move to the next one, and then we're going to move to the swing the map portion. We're talking about the swing election portion of this video. Then we're going to look at the Senate map, and then we're going to look at what Robert Barnes had to say, and then we're going to close the video out. We're going to look at this little exchange last night, 3 particular parts. This part here on Tim Pool basically being a little bit cynical about the judge, which, by the way, I don't blame Tim for being. There's also another section where we're talking about the actual reaction. And then, of course, what I mentioned earlier about the possible election of 2024 and why it is that Democrats may be doing exactly what I thought they would always do, and kind of like let's just say that they might be kicking themselves in the balls a lot harder than you might would think. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this. There will be interruption, of course, from time to time, which of course will be my commentary. So let's just go ahead and look at this.
Thing. I even envision a possibility where when Trump's lawyer politely argues to the judge, New York City's laws are very lax in terms of crimes committed. This is not a violent offender. And then if they reference just recently, 2 young people were firebombing police vehicles and were given an opportunity, the judge will say, how dare you question the motives of people challenging the white supremacy of this nation? Donald Trump is a white. I would not be surprised if
You're
that's
more
what happened.
cynical than I am.
Did you see what
Do you
Eric
think
Adams
a
said
New York
today?
City judge?
No, I
gonna be
don't.
like-
I'm not as like forthright in just thinking the whole legal system will collapse. Here's why I think you might be wrong, Tim, just to play devil's advocate, is that the room for error here is very limited. Every comma is going to be dissected by the legal community here. People could get disbarred. This is not some sort of fringe case in Ithaca, New York. Everybody involved in this is going to be examined on the appellate level. They could lose their law license. There could be complaints filed against them. You might be right. The whole system might be so corroded and might be so poisoned. However, I think that because of I think this is my prediction, they're going to just blink and just keep their head down and act as if this is a regular crime and not do anything too unusual and say, this is the law and we follow it and this is precedent. Fine, you can go out, no
But that
bail.
means jail. 34 counts?
Well, hold on.
Okay, really quick. I am showing you guys some clippings, some headlines, some things that came across Twitter. And guess what? Charlie ended up being correct. The New York City District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, would ultimately blink. The gag order on Trump, which, by the way, wouldn't surprise me if there wasn't a deal made. Of course, that deal was the mugshot, which, by the way, I think that this visual of him going inside the courtroom looks a little bit more badass than a mugshot. The thing is this right here. He's going back to Mar-a-Lago, which I automatically assumed he was going to do. Come to find out we were correct. We're also finding out that the judge just wants him to stay off of social media, regardless of this judge's ties. We are finding out that for the most part that they're looking to rearraign him later on this year. And of course, I didn't think about this, but 34 counts or 34 misdemeanors tells me that you're overpiling because you're looking for one to stick. And it looks like none of them are going to stick. You had to elevate it to a felony. And New York, of course, has very, very lax laws. So it looks like Charlie Kirk, surprisingly, may have been 100% correct. Meaning that the New York City District Attorney blinked. Or not the District Attorney, but the judge. At least the judge on his own may have blinked. And said, you know what, Mr. Trump, just stay off social media. Not only just stay off social media, but just kind of keep it quiet. We'll see you later on this year. And it looks to me like Charlie may have gotten that one correct. Now, there are these other things that we must discuss. And of course, it's normally Tim Pools' let's just say his fear.
Necessarily.
They're
No.
misdemeanors, though.
Well, they're
And
misdemeanors.
There's
They
at least
upgraded.
one felony.
And 34 counts doesn't mean you go to jail, by the way. I mean, it's just you could have one action that you have 34 different points. For example, you could get charged for fraud and you make 34 phone calls, and it's all on the U.S. attorney or on the charging documents of the prosecutor to determine how many counts there are. There are U.S. attorneys' offices in America that are well known. They're notorious for 99 count indictments just to do it.
So why? So let's look at it this way. Why would they indict Donald Trump in the first place?
I have a theory as to why. It's revenge.
Revenge for winning the presidency?
No, it's more than that. It's revenge for stealing the Kravitz Center from them. Explain that.
Well,
Hold on. No, we know this in the psychological literature. Trauma is a very, very powerful thing. These people were traumatized and humiliated that night.
Oh, yeah.
They thought that was going to be a wedding ceremony. Think of it. They wore their best clothes. They thought they were
The
going to be
glass ceiling?
Yeah, no, literally. They
So
thought,
for people to understand, this is Hillary Clinton's
Yeah, the
party.
yes.
And it's a literal glass ceiling.
At the
correct.
Javits.
Is it Kravitz or Javits?
Javits.
I get all messed up. Javits. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
Shout out to
So-
Larry. For a second, I was like, wait, what are you talking? Oh, no,
Yeah, Javits, Kravitz. Kravitz is in Palm Beach. So
And I will never forget that night, how it was that Hillary Clinton supporters just started bawling and crying. I mean, now Charlie could be on to something. Now, I think it's a little bit more than revenge, but it's definitely something that has to do with this. Hillary Clinton has never gotten over it. She still talks about it constantly. She still rails about how he was not an illegitimate president. the left has never gotten over it. I mean, dude, let me say this right too, and I'm going to bring this up again in this video. In 2008, John McCain got right at 59 million votes. Romney got over 60 million votes in 2012. 2016, Trump got right at 63. 2020, Donald Trump got 74.2. Now, guys, in my follow-up tomorrow to the Young Turks video, where we're going to be talking about actual conversation with those on the other side, you're going to see why it is that people are, in fact, leaving the left. It's happening at a ridiculous rate, and the Democratic Party is obviously going out of their way to accelerate the process by embracing the wokeness. But then again, though, it's H.A. Goodman who said, and I do believe him, there's a good portion of the Democratic Party that wants to get rid of the wokes because they know the wokes are not sustainable. Now, with that rather being said, guys, let's go ahead and kind of cut this portion off and go to the next one.
And then I asked the guy what he thought. And he was a really funny guy. He was really cool. We were getting along, having a great time, just having fun. Some jokes were made, some fun poker hands. And then when he got into it, he got really angry. And he was just like, those people, what I saw with my own eyes on January 6th, they should all be executed, every single one of them. That's treason against this country. And I saw what happened. And I was like, well, you hear about what happened on 5/29? And he says, no, what's that? I was like, when the leftists, the far left, they tore the barricades down at the White House, set fire to St. John's Church, firebombed the guard post.
Yeah, I really like this. This guy here named Cattle Dog said another fake story, Tim. Another fake Tim Pools story. I'm not saying it's real. I'm not saying it's not real. But and he was talking about a guy that he met at a casino in Maryland, because Tim lives right there on the Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, like tri-state line. And he was talking about how he ran into a guy who was more than happy with saying that the people who protested on January the 6th should have been executed. He's trying to make the assertion that obviously the country is pretty damn divided, which it is. If you saw some of the videos that I had playing in the cutaway over what was going on in New York, you would see that obviously there's a lot of tension going on here, a lot of craziness. And he's about to make a point here that CNN had a poll, which he may have already done it, but apparently CNN released a poll where a lot of people actually wanted Trump indicted. But I don't think it's fully indicative just yet of what's going on. CNN polls have a tendency to be a little bit inaccurate, actually pretty damn well inaccurate, but still at the same time, though, it does kind of clamp down the narrative that we are, in fact, divided in this country. Now, I'm going to let some more of this play, and then we're going to go to the last portion of this particular Timcast IRL special, which, by the way, I will leave the full episode in the description box. But Tim oftentimes, and you got to ask yourself a question, where is most of this violence coming from, or where is most of this rhetoric coming from? Which is exactly what I'm kind of devoting myself to discussing here in the near future. Because we have to find out what's causing the left to do what they are doing and see if maybe it's a possibility that maybe we can either A, diagnose it, or possibly find a way to disconnect from it, or at least keep these people away. Just kind of understand where their ideas are actually coming from, because they seem like they're communistic, but in reality, if you look at it, it's more fascistic.
And then the Trump was forced into an emergency bunker, and he goes, I don't know I don't know anything about that. And I'm like, that's it right there. This guy was not political. He said he hated all politicians, but the messaging that reaches him is insurrectionists are traitors, and I have no idea what Antifa is.
Yeah. And imagine a new wave of riots called the Trump riots. That's what they want to see bubble up.
But I just can't see it. I can't.
Well, you were the one, Tim, that you think the country would collapse if they remanded him.
But not because people on the right are going to romp around with guns.
That's probably unlikely, yeah.
Very unlikely. The reason I believe that if Donald Trump did not surrender, the country would collapse is because a country only exists based on confidence. It is an abstract idea that tethers people together. You look at other countries where they do not have confidence in the government, you end up with civil war. You end up with corruption, with bribery, etc. And that.
This is actually true, though. You do end up with this, and there is going to be a lot to be said in the Robert Barnes piece of this video that's coming up here soon, because he brought up something that nobody has even bothered to think about. Even I didn't bother to think about, which will be coming up here soon. But it feels to me like sometimes Tim has kind of like hyperbolically overplayed this, and Charlie Kirk, contrary to his faults, is kind of being the person of reason in the room. And of course, I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk was, how do I say, I'll put it this way here. Charlie Kirk ended up being 100% right about what was going on in New York. He isn't fully right yet, but for the most part, he was actually correct about what was going to happen in the indictment or what was going to happen today, which, by the way, I'm recording most of this on Tuesday as I'm opening the video. Not really anything occurred at all. As a matter of fact, Trump actually was awarded money today by way of the Ninth Circuit from Stormy Daniels' camp. I mean, you talk about having the hand of God on you. I don't know what to say.
Very little power of the government other than guns. If Donald Trump stayed in Florida and announced to the nation, I do not find these charges to be legitimate. These are political, it's a political persecution and a witch hunt, so I'm going to completely ignore it. What precedent would be set nationally that New York was powerless to stop someone who committed what they say are felonies, and Florida refuses to extradite?
Yes, so that's two questions. So it's speculation because it's not happening, but it's interesting. First, the precedent would be you file an extradition order. The second is Florida has to choose whether or not to honor it, and they probably would.
You think Ron DeSantis?
That's the question. I don't think the governor has all that authority. I don't know how all the particulars work.
He
I think
said that he wasn't going to get involved. He was very clear on that.
Not getting involved and dishonoring a interstate extradition order are two different things.
Yeah, Pontius Pilate didn't get involved with Jesus'
but
Christ.
Can you imagine?
Again, this is all speculation,
Sure,
but I think
for
it's
sure.
helpful.
But let's just
fascinating.
entertain these two potential outcomes. The extradition order denied. Ron DeSantis saying
Okay.
we're not involved.
Which I think would be a pretty ballsy and cool thing to do. But that's
Absolutely, I
Me too.
completely agree.
Yeah, but
what does that mean for law enforcement as a
Hold on,
country?
but
wait,
Tim-
the other scenario I mentioned.
Sure.
Imagine Ron DeSantis saying, "We have no choice. I am hereby ordering state police to Mar-a-Lago to arrest and transport Trump against his will to New York."
That would be
Okay, let me go ahead and say this right now. That's not going to happen. Okay, as much as DeSantis and Trump are having issues, I highly doubt DeSantis would do that, especially if he's considering running in 2024. That would be absolutely disastrous for his campaign. Now, I understand that Tim is speculating here, but that right there is 100% not going to happen. Once again, this feels a little bit more like more and more fear-mongering, more and more of the Civil War grift stuff. Let's go ahead and go to the next section of this video. Quick. I need to say this. With all of Tim Pools, CW rhetoric, and like I said, I have mixed feelings on Tim. Sometimes I like Tim, sometimes I got to call him out when I think he's wrong. I obviously called him out during the whole quartering thing, and I've gone after him from time to time for not having let's just say a full bit of common sense. But let me go ahead and explain something to you guys. Well, not really a full bit of common sense, but a full bit of just not understanding politics. Tim, I think, is very in touch with what's going on the ground, where I think that he's not as in touch when it comes to actual application and what's fully going on outside. Sometimes you can be too much inside the bubble or too much inside the ground. He's very good at calling out the left, but a lot of times he gets a lot of things when it comes to talking about the right and normal politics. I'll be talking about this a little bit more in tomorrow's the video I'll be making tomorrow about the Convention of States, which does have to do with this because this is a take that he had made a while back. Now, the next section of this video is going to be, we're going to be looking at the political situation as far as the political map, swaying the election, and of course we're going to be looking at the Senate map. This right is the part that we're about to get to. You see, we had a census in 2020 right after the election. That census determined that some states, Florida and Texas, had in fact gotten bigger, but they had gotten bigger with Republican voters. It also showed in the 2022 midterm elections that in California, there was an election shift. Now, California is obviously a very, very blue state. But Republicans did very good in California and even in New York State. And it looks like that all the people who were moving to Georgia are mostly coming from Illinois and coming from Michigan. That means they're obviously moving to the South, which is going to make Georgia damn near impossible to win for Republicans in the future. However, it's going to make a state like, say, Michigan more palatable, where Wisconsin is already in a position to where it's already shifting to the right, as well as the state of Nevada. Now, Arizona could be a little bit of a trick, but I'm one of the ones who thinks that Georgia and Arizona could possibly flip back at least one more cycle. We'll do more videos on that in the future when we get closer to 2024. But I do want to listen to this portion here to kind of help us set up for the next part.
All the way down so they starve and die.
Just watching
It
the
was
bombing of
the
Hiroshima,
advent
man.
of scorched earth warfare.
So the
No, not the
well,
advent. It was just the first time in the United States
Yeah.
they did it.
Right, there you go. It was when I believe they coined scorched earth.
So let me just frame it though, because I hate to reduce things to binaries, but the American right has a choice. Option one, keep doing what we are doing, which is to send strongly worded press releases and op-eds and hope things get better. Choice two,
indict.
use political power and hope it gets better. They're both bad options.
I agree.
I like the
completely
whole
agree.
the forgiveness arc for Donald. Like, if you're really pummeled and beaten down by society so hard and you still stand up and forgive people for it, that's a message that will resonate for thousands of years.
I think that's powerful. Not going to happen.
It could.
I think
No, I
I think
don't
they're
think
lying in
that's
the
gonna
polls
happen.
too. They're trying to make the argument that they want Trump to be the nominee so they can beat him in 2024.
But they didn't beat him last time. Well, I mean, they did beat him last
They
time.
beat him last time,
Well,
but they don't.
before
But,
that.
but they don't have anything right now. There's no one.
Hey.
Biden can't do it. Biden didn't campaign. He hid in his basement. There was a lockdown where mail-in ballots were sent to everyone's home.
I totally agree with you.
They don't have any of these tools. So unless H5N1 hits,
Yeah.
and then they do another lockdown,
do
You mean
another
like a
lockdown.
swine flu 2.0 or something?
Biden is
Super swole.
done.
Do you remember the
But-
town
but,
halls
look-
with people in their cars?
Right. Yes.
That was
the,
so
the
stupid.
Jeeps in front of the stage.
Yes.
Biden is a proven failure. The country is in shambles. That guy I mentioned who talked about executing J6ers also said it's Biden's fault the economy is bad.
Yeah, that's
So my point is just they can't try this game twice. And I do believe they're going to try. They're putting up polls where it's like if an election was held today, Biden would win. DeSantis would beat Trump, but Biden, they're saying that
This right here is actually a Tim Pool W. He's actually 100% correct. Do I need to show you all the DeSantis accounts and how they are actually rooting for Trump to be arrested and be put away? I mean, I'm showing you guys some of this stuff now. You'll see some more towards the end. Those of you who watch Ben Shapiro already know that he's very, very much carrying the DeSantis tune. Same thing with pretty much all of the Daily Wire. The DeSantis shields on Twitter are absolutely ridiculous. John Cardillo, he's trying to play nice with the Trump crowd now, but only after he had a conversation with Cat Turd to tell him to know his role, know his place, and stop being such a paid shield. Even Cat Turd, who likes them both, even knows this. I'm pretty sure some of you guys may know that, especially if you're a Trump voter. Fact of the matter is that these DeSantis shields are going out of their way to divide the party more. They claim that it's us Trump people who are doing it, but the DeSantis people started the minute Trump came out of office. They've been trying to divide the party for a long time, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. Now, there is no way Republicans can win if most of the base is not on board, but I'm pretty sure under Donald Trump, a lot more of the overall base would come around to him, whereas in the DeSantis case, you may be alienating anywhere between 10 to 13 million voters. You don't win with polls, you win with turnout. But there's a golden opportunity for Republicans going forward in the future. And the thing that Tim is trying to say is that Democrats don't really have anything to run on. Okay, well, they've bungled Ukraine. They've bungled the U.S. deficit. Inflation is through the roof. Granted, I do think some of the inflation would have been here if Trump was still in office, but not that high. To go on top of that, you've also got the price of gas to the roof. Now, all of a sudden, Saudi Arabia is saying that they're not going to drill any oil anymore. They're cutting their overall production. U.S. foreign policy is very weak, and we're expecting a massive economic shutdown here soon. And more stuff about Joe continues to come out. More and more stuff about his ties to China continue to come out. The Biden administration on the surface looks completely dead. And let's not forget about East Palestine, how they suddenly blame Trump for that, but yet he hasn't been in office for over 2 years. Let's talk about, blame Trump for Afghanistan. Yeah, they basically blame Trump for everything that they have screwed up, all right? They've been on watch for over 2 years, and they have screwed up literally everything. They don't have anything to run on. So right now, they're just throwing everything at the wall. And don't worry, I'll get to that little comment at the very beginning of the video when we looked at what Joe originally was saying about how we're going to constitutionally keep Trump out of office. Don't worry, that will be explained at the very end.
DeSantis would beat Biden, and Trump would lose to Biden, and they're trying to make the case that we should support DeSantis for the primary. I think they are lying once again in the polls.
So can I validate what you're saying?
Yeah.
Can you go to a website? It's number 270towin.com. This is not
270
talk.
to win.
Yeah. This every 10 years we do a census as mandated by the Constitution. Most people don't know this, but the map has slightly changed in Trump and the Republican favor for the first time for 2024. So the maps are good for 3 cycles, and then you redo them. Good for 3 cycles. Actually, 2 cycles, redo them.
What do you mean? Right here it's saying.
Let me show you. Okay, so let's assume Texas goes red. Is that fair enough to say?
Oh,
Okay.
easily. And Florida.
Yep. Okay, let's assume Pennsylvania goes blue, please. And then
nice.
New Hampshire goes blue. And then
Oh, wow.
all of Maine goes blue.
Really?
Yeah, let
Yeah,
me
I
show you.
think
Michigan
Maine
goes
is
blue.
blue.
I know what I'm doing here. Yeah, so, and Minnesota goes blue.
And Minnesota goes
And then
blue.
Nevada goes blue.
And Nevada goes blue.
Iowa goes red.
Iowa goes
And Ohio
blue.
goes red.
And Ohio goes
And North
red.
Carolina goes red. And that's, okay. So what you have right here is why they fear Trump. All Trump has to do is win Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, and he's the president of the United States. 3 states he won in 2016, 3 states that receive Zuckerberg money, 3 states that have elected statewide Republicans, and 3 states that have more, 2 states that have more Republicans registered than Democrats in Georgia and Arizona, and 1 state that's 50-50. This is why the Democrats are indicting Trump. The map has changed. This was
And Charlie makes an extremely good point, and we'll do more videos on this. Now, I'm going to be using NBC Swing the Election to show you guys why it is that, based upon the numbers, the 2020 and 2022 exit polling, it's a lot worse than what Charlie just said. You see, I personally, I just said this, I think that Arizona and Georgia could swing back one more cycle. Nevada has been voting to the right of the nation in each cycle, the past 4 cycles, so has Wisconsin. Michigan may be a bit of a long shot, and Pennsylvania, if you have the right candidate, you might be able to pull it off. However, I will be showing you in the Swing the Vote website here in a second. Sorry about that. I kind of got choked up on my own throat here because I'm about to cough. I'm going to show you why it is a state like Virginia, especially with the swing in the black vote, just may be in play, while the swing in the Hispanic vote suddenly makes New Mexico in play. While the swing in white working class voters and the increase of white working class voters just may put Pennsylvania and some of these other states here in play. Now, with that there being said, let's go ahead and get to the swing the vote section of this video. Not the most accurate in metrics, it's obviously pretty good. Now, guys, let me go ahead and say this. One of the main reasons why Joe Biden had so many votes in 2020, even though Time Life admitted to it, I can't say the words here on YouTube, they admitted to what happened, they still had boots on the ground. There was still a massive anti-Trump vote. I would estimate roughly 68 to 70 million that voted for Biden were obviously just voting against Donald Trump. Now, of those votes, I would also argue that there were probably another additional 9 million that voted because, well, when you have a Democrat governor controlling a state like, say, Pennsylvania or Michigan or possibly Wisconsin or Minnesota, yeah, those voters may have gotten tired of what was going on, and they said to themselves, okay, well, obviously our governor's not going to work with the president, so why not just go ahead and go vote for the Dem anyways? Because, well, and you saw it in some exit polling shortly after, especially with the Hunter Biden laptop, a lot of people saying that they wish they could have changed their votes. They regretted voting. I'm telling you, a lot of these people, based upon the economic situation, are not going to be around to vote in 2024. Okay, it's just the way that it is. They're not going to be as interested. Yeah, they may not like Trump, but as you guys have been seeing recently, they don't really care for Biden either. Now, guys, this right here is the 307-231. This was the estimation at that time based upon several factors. So I'm going to base this mostly upon and let me put it this way here. I'm going to base this, just a rough estimate, okay, based upon the turnout being moderately lower. So you had roughly 157 million voters that voted in 2020. I'm going to say the total is going to be closer to right around 142 this time around. College-educated white, Joe Biden obviously got 54% of that vote. So I'm going to lower the turnout for college-educated. I'm going to lower it down to 70. Now, guys, really quick, this thing is kind of a pain, all right? I'm just going to let you know right now. It was at 72. I just moved it to 70. I'm going to increase Trump's total to 1. Now, it didn't really change a whole lot except the popular vote. Okay, so let's get to non-college educated white, which, by the way, is exactly what is being affected the most right now as far as income is concerned. We're going to move it up to 57%. Obviously, you saw a bit of a shift here. Now, Trump at 69%, I'm only going to give him 1%. Wow, that gives him a 310-228 advantage off the bat. What states swung? Well, only New Hampshire swung. However, we get back to 2016 map. You see Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. This right here may be a given. Now, let's say we lower this turnout to 56%. Like I said, it's a bit of a pain. Let's lower it to 56%. And lower Trump's overall total to 69. It's only 257. You see how much things could swing? So let's go ahead and bring the black vote down to 54. A lot of this is because African-American voters have been kind of, I wouldn't say running from the Democratic Party, but they've kind of sort of been, let's just say, a little bit skittish about it recently. Now, Fox News had exit pollings after the 2020 midterms that showed Republicans had actually gained with black voters. Well, if you go online, you go on Twitter, you see a lot of people who are black saying, we didn't even vote for Trump in 2020, but you're starting to make us want to vote for him in 2024. It's mostly black males. Now, Trump, like I said, I just moved the turnout needle. So all I did was move it down to 54. Don't worry, I'll bring it back up probably to 55 because it's not going to be that much. But Trump really got 11% of the overall black vote and a much, much higher electorate, meaning a much, much higher turnout. However, McLaughlin Associates had him at like 27 or 30. It's one of the reasons why I don't trust McLaughlin polls. Rasmussen had him right around 16. Now, based upon what's going on now, let's say we move the black turnout to 56. Let's say it's 56% and Trump gets 11. As you guys can see, based upon these metrics, which is very, very minimal changes based upon the normal trend that you see in elections, Trump is right back at 306. Look, he lost the 2020 election, even under those circumstances, by a very, very small amount between 3 states. And you could even argue that you could interchange those 3 states, including Nevada, because it was really 6 states. It was Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona. If you move the needle just a slight small bit, he wins at least 3 of those 6 states. That's how close it was, even under the circumstances. The Democratic Party knows they're not going to be able to stop it. And don't worry, we're going to keep coming back to this. Now, let's go to Latino. You got the border crisis. So I'm going to increase the turnout here to 48. 28%, it didn't really make much of a dent. Now, let's go ahead and increase it to 50. Even at 50%, look at this. Even at 50%, Trump is still winning 277, 261. Now, Republicans, according to the initial report, got 33% of the Latino vote in 2020. That was the Fox News exit polling. It was later on bumped up to 38, but I believe the David Shore number between 35 and 36. Republicans this last cycle got above 35%. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to raise it all the way to 39% because that's the max. 306 is what Donald Trump is getting in that total with 50% approval. 50% turnout. Let's lower the turnout to 48. Let's lower the turnout to 48 and 38%. Even then, he still gets 306. The only things that have changed are the original states that Trump originally won. Now, go back to what Charlie was saying earlier about the Electoral College map being much, much more favorable for Republicans. Well, that portion at the very end of the video, going back to what Joe Biden was saying at the very beginning about we use every constitutional method, don't worry, we'll be bringing that back up at the very end. But keep that in your mind. So let's go ahead and go through this, okay? And we're going to do it one more time. As you can see, Asian and others, you could see, especially with what's going on at Dearborn, Michigan, you could see that number get as high as, say, 36% at a turnout of about 46. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the turnout to roughly 44. You're seeing 316 Electoral College votes. Nevada, New Hampshire were added on to the total outside of what Trump won in 2016. Now, let me give you my honest personal belief of what I think is going on. Let's factor in the economy. I understand that you've got Michael Lichtman's 13 keys to election victory. You've also got a guy on Twitter named Mearsheimer fan who's also got one like this too. I'm using their metrics, which right now Trump is meeting half the metrics that you would need. In some cases, even more than half the metrics. And not to mention the fact that you've got Marianne Williamson trying to primary Joe. You've got Andrew Yang talking about a run. You don't have any conservative or any right-leaning challengers at this moment in time, even though I'm sure one will come around to split the vote. So let's go ahead and take the fact that you have a very, very bad economy. Let's go ahead and imagine a crash. Even if there isn't a crash, massive amounts of inflation. The fact that gas, the foreign policy, and even with all the shenanigans that could go on. Let's go ahead and lower college non-educated white overall turnout to 68%. I'm going to lower Donald Trump's overall total vote to 46%. Actually, I'm going to lower it to 45. Because, of course, you'll have some DeSantis stands who just won't vote. 45% of college-educated white. And like I said, we haven't even gotten to age yet, which I probably don't think I'm going to need to. But, because this right here is basically just a good old-fashioned general overlay. 68% lower overall turnout. Even if you increase the turnout, Trump is still winning the election. Let's increase it to 71%, 72%, 74%, 75%. You would have to damn near get almost over 80% college-educated turnout in the suburbs. That's what I'm saying. Suburban voters are not what Republicans need to be going for. Trump gets 45% based upon the current metrics from the previous election. He still wins the election 306. Non-college educated whites. I'm going to increase this total to 59%. Okay, 59% and 69. You get 312. Now, if this is the case, this is the total that's going to remain. 69%. But even if I lower the turnout all the way back down to say, let's just say 54%, Trump still wins the election. However, I'm going to put the prediction right around 56%, and I'm going to put Trump at 68 instead of 69. I'm going to be very, very generous to the Democrat here. Now, in this case here, Trump loses. But still, though, with everything going on, black turnout at 56%, and the natural gains and swing that's been going on, we're going to raise it to 15%. Trump's winning. 13%, Trump's winning. Even at 12%, Trump's still winning the election, even though I think the real total is going to be somewhere right around 16%, and you'd have 302. Latino, let's go ahead and make it 49%. Let's give Trump 38%. We're going to baseline him at 38%. He's still winning the election 302. All right, and even if you leave Asian alone, or even if you lower the Asian total, as you guys can see, it's not that much of the population. Fact of the matter is that Donald Trump is, for the most part, actually winning the election as it stands right now, regardless even of the polls. And let me go and say something about polls right quick. When I see a candidate like DeSantis, or if I see a Democrat candidate, or any candidate with a high lead in the national polling average, I don't want that. No, I don't. I want the polls to actually, in fact, be close. You see, if you have massive leads in the polls, it may de-incentivize your voters to go out and vote. Yes, that could actually happen. Ask Mitt Romney about that in 2012. A lot of his voters didn't go because he was winning in polls, and they automatically assumed he was going to win. Here's another example. 1980, Jimmy Carter. He wanted Ronald Reagan, by the way. He desperately wanted to face Ronald Reagan. He was up by him 10 points before the election even happened, and Ronald Reagan beat him in a damn near 50-state landslide. All right, just figured I'd throw that out there. George Herbert Walker Bush was getting destroyed by Michael Dukakis all the way up until the last week of Election Day. George Herbert Walker Bush won a massive landslide. Hillary Clinton was up on poll relatively handily, and Trump beat her. George W. Bush was down to Gore and, well, he was never down to John Kerry. He was up by a very small amount. What I'm saying to you is that just because you have a very, very big lead in the polls does not mean you're going to win. Oftentimes, people fall into a lack sense of security there. Now, looking at age, 18 to 19-year-olds. Well, Trump, believe it or not, is actually performing better amongst that group. But let's take a look at this really quick. The college situation. Let's take a look at the Bernie Bro class, which, by the way, Joe Biden needed. Let's take a look at this. Let's say that Joe Biden, let's just say for the sake of argument, that Joe Biden cannot get those voters out because most of them have been fed up with the fact that they did not get socialism because they did not understand civics. I'm going to pull Donald Trump's overall vote total to 35%. Now, apparently he loses, right? Okay, well, let's go ahead and let's drop the overall turnout by roughly 5%. I tell you what, we'll put it on an odd number. Trump's still winning 270-68 in that metric right there alone. Actually, Trump's polling somewhere between 30, 37, and 40, but I want to go ahead and give him the low total. I'm going to give him 36. 290. Okay, 30 to 34-year-olds. We're going to lower the overall turnout once again. We're going to lower it to 52. There's a natural 3-point swing. However, I'm not going to cause a swing here. I'm going to leave it at 45%. 45 to 64-year-olds. Trump is actually doing better with them, where DeSantis, believe it or not, is actually doing better with 65-year-olds, where Biden will probably do better as well. We're going to increase the turnout here because it's the Generation X class, which Trump does a lot better with. You see, 53%, there you go. Let's go ahead and up this total to 54. Now he's at 310. Factor this in now with the older. You don't have the C19. I can't say it actually the way you would normally say it. So you may get a lower turnout. Or with the wokeness, you may get a higher turnout. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to leave the turnout at 68%. And we're going to give Trump 56% of that vote. Donald Trump's got 320 electoral college votes at this moment in time. See, the thing is this right here. They're doing this situation to try to keep him away. So let's take a look at it one more time with those metrics. 296 is exactly what you're looking at right now, bare minimum based upon this, meaning that only one state is flipped, and it was actually Wisconsin, the one state that we expected Republicans to take back, regardless of circumstances, next election cycle. So I'm leaving that age right there. This is my final prediction. College-educated white, 69%. Trump will get 45%, which is actually less than what he got in 2020. However, non-college educated white, I'm going to put it at 57%. 57%. Right now, you're looking at 296. Trump probably gets 69% of that vote, a lot like what he did in 2016, 312. The black vote, I'm going to put it at 55% total. You could even make a case for it being lower. But I'm going to put it at 55 just to be safe. 16% is what he probably gets. Even if he only got, say, 13% or 12 or even 11, I tell you what, put him at 11. it doesn't change anything. He's still looking at 306. The metrics are not favoring Democrats in the next election cycle. That is one of the main reasons why they're doing this. Charlie Kirk is actually making a very good point. Now, guys, with that right there being said, let's take a look at that Senate map. One of these pages that has got a lot of ads on it, so guys, please forgive me here. So let's take a look at this Senate map really quick. As it stands at this moment in time, Republicans are projected to have right around 50 senators. Now, Democrats have got a lot of senators to defend. Okay. Now, I want you to think about something really quick. The SVB banking crisis, the Sam Bankman-Fried thing, Democrats are losing a lot of donors. That's one of the main reasons why they're opting for bailouts right now. But let's take a look at this. In the state of Nevada, there's been a bit of a rightward shift that's been going on for a while. Adam Laxalt lost that election, but not by a whole lot. He's still a very, very formidable candidate, even though he lost. Real American Politics makes a very, very good case for him. Let's just say that that one goes Republican by lean. Kristen Sinema. Now, Charlie Kirk said that he felt she was very formidable. I don't think she is, especially being a third-party candidate in that state there. While she is liked, you can obviously see some things going wrong, especially given the fact that Democrats are trying to throw somebody out there to run against her right now. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that that one also turns. So now Republicans would have roughly 52 senators. Now, at this moment in time, Republicans have 49. Okay, so really this should actually be 51. But we're saying 52 because, I tell you what, I'm going to keep it at 52 so that way you can just kind of say that the vice president obviously, counts the Senate vote. Now, Texas right now, this is a state right here where Ted Cruz, he's winning. Rick Scott is winning. Mississippi, Tennessee, you're not going to change. The one that Real Clear Politics may have decided to go in, this is 271 by the way, may have went ahead and projected them Democrats to lose, is Joe Manchin. So what about John Tester? That's 53. Now, California, Dianne Feinstein is not running. It's going to be Adam Schiff, but he's not the strongest Democrat candidate in the world. I'm not saying that Adam Schiff will lose. I'm just saying you might want to put a P on it. And with the growth that's going on in California, you never know. It's wishful thinking. I know it is, but I'm just saying, keep that in mind. Let's take a look at Utah. If Trump's the nominee, he's definitely primarying Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's losing, and the Republican Senate candidate is more than likely going to win. So there's another possible America First senator. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin is not a strong senator. If there's if the Republicans have a high turnout night, you could see that seat go as well as Michigan. Even if Trump was to lose Michigan, you could still see that Senate seat flip. Well, that leaves the state of Ohio. That one's almost a guarantee to flip. Pennsylvania, not so much. Now, New York is not going to flip. Vermont's not going to flip. Maine, third party, still not going to flip. But let's just say that there was a good enough turnout, and let's just say 56 is just a floor. Or maybe it's just or maybe it's the low roof and there's another roof to break through. What if Republicans really and truly have a spectacular night? What if Glenn Youngkin decides to run or win some Sears in Virginia? It's possible. What about Bob Casey's seat? It's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's possible. Amy Klobuchar is not popular in Minnesota. What if that happens? You see, Democrats are looking at the fact that they're losing money at a ridiculous rate. Why don't we throw in New Mexico, too? I mean, I understand it's solidly blue, but you never know. You're looking at the possibility of possibly 60 Republicans. And this is another reason why it wasn't, and you're going to hear, and I'm going to go ahead and answer this portion now. When Biden talks about constitutionally keeping President Trump out, he's talking about the 1877 Legislative Act that Trump wanted to use in 2020. Send it back to the states. Had the vice president use the appropriation powers and send it back to the states. Okay, well, and I'm going to go ahead and say it now. One of the other things the Democrats are trying to avoid is the Convention of States. Now, we'll touch on the Convention of States, do a full video on that later on this week. But if Republicans have control of the legislative bodies in these states, and let's just say that they win these states in the election, at least legislatively, you're going to have a hard time. And I mean a very, very hard time pulling that off, keeping Biden in office or moving to Harris. It seems to me like it's a constitutional quagmire the Democrats are trying to avoid. So why not go ahead and prosecute him, trump up the charges, try to keep him off the campaign trail as much as we can and possibly weaken him, when in reality, they're not really helping things out, because the truth is this right here. The reality of the situation is the fact that people are living through a bit of a, financial nightmare right now. These are attempts that more than likely will not work. Now, as I said before at the very beginning of this video, this right here is mostly a white pill style video. This is not meant to black pill you at all. Yes, we can take back the country. Yes, we can win the next election. I just figured I would throw that out there. Now, with that right there being said, guys, let's go ahead and go to the Robert Barnes portion. Okay, guys, I wanted to come back to this indictment thing one more time because a trial date is looking to be set later on this year. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this portion up is because Robert Barnes made two very strong points in this video, but we're only going to be answering one of those. But I'm going to go ahead and answer the second point now. And don't worry, I'll be leaving this in the description box for you guys to see because Robert Barnes is great. Viva Fry is great. I still watch it from time to time. These guys are awesome. Robert Barnes made the point that right now the United States of America looks horrible on the foreign stage. You see, what America is known for is justice, not freedom and justice both. You're innocent till you're proven guilty, all that stuff. Well, a lot of countries that are not known for that are looking at the United States and saying, you guys look like a bunch of hypocrites. You don't get to lecture us on anything when you're trying to lock up a former leader. That's the point that Barnes was trying to make, that we actually look very illegitimate right now on the foreign stage. However, that being said, I'm going to roll this a little bit for you guys, and I'm going to provide a little bit extra context afterwards, about 4 minutes, but make sure you guys pay very close attention to Mr. Barnes.
Then do we have a federal system of governance anymore? We really don't. I mean, it's something the court has sat on the sidelines with because of the politics of the Nixon case. They I think mishandled the Nixon case. They really didn't deal with what are the flow through consequences of this. Same with the Clinton versus Jones case. They really didn't go through, okay, what's exactly the consequences of allowing a civil suit to proceed against a president? And there's problems there that they never fully addressed or answered. This case poses those problems in clear relief. And depending on how egregious the abuse of power is by the New York courts, will detail how much these issues get meaningfully addressed. Now, as Alan Dershowitz noted, probably the other than a motion to stay, which would probably be maybe the second motion brought, the first motion that should be brought, aside from making sure there's no gag order, no unconstitutional restrictions or restraints on bail, is a motion to transfer venue. It's a case, now there they should do detailed polling, which it won't be hard for the polling to prove. You can even find a liberal Democratic pollster, a Stanley Greenberg type, to do it. Will show without question that Manhattan is a place that is contaminated with so much Trump hatred, it is impossible to get an impartial verdict. And move the case right within New York, one of two places. You could move it upstate, by the way, which is what's happened in many police shooting cases in New York, famously in the 41 shots case. Or just move it over to Staten Island, where the area is split and where you can actually get a impartial jury. That should be the first motion brought, and that's a motion that under select circumstances you can appeal, and at a minimum preserve your future rights that its denial would set aside any adverse verdict.
Now, really quick, and let me go ahead and provide the final bit of commentary on this bit right here before we go to the rest of the video. The Electabros are hoping for Trump to get arrested and found guilty. The Democratic Party wants this. Robert Barnes, who called the Rittenhouse case down to a T, and many other cases down to a T, by the way, Nick Rekieta did as well, is making the point that Lower Manhattan, which is where Trump Tower is located at, where Trump is being tried at, is filled with a lot of Trump discontent. A lot of people hate Donald Trump in that area. A lot of very, very liberal Democrats. However, let's say you move this case to Albany. Albany is another place that's not exactly what we call pro-Trump. But then again, though, if you go to upstate New York, and last time I went to New York, I went to a friend of mine's house who stayed in the city outside of New York City. New York State is not as anti-Trump as you think. I'm talking about the state, not the city. It's possible Trump could get a much, much better jury in this situation if you file for a change of venue on appeal, which I'm pretty sure they would do, and they would more than likely win on appeal via Alan Dershowitz. Now, Dershowitz is a very, very liberal Democrat, and Dershowitz is one of the attorneys on the O.J. Simpson case, but Alan Dershowitz has done so many appeals cases, it's absolutely ridiculous. So let me go ahead and say this before we move on. Democrats are obviously screwing up by pursuing this because they're making their It's basically a desperate attempt at trying to keep Trump from becoming president or even running. Number one. Number two, the Electabros really and truly are showing you that they are not your friends. And number three, obviously the establishment is pulling their strings. But as you guys can see, this right here is another case of the Democratic Party, being the incompetent fools that they are, completely screwing things up like always. And I'm loving every bit of it. And that right there, my friends, is exactly what the Electabros will not tell you. I am going to shudder away from my theory that DeSantis is being picked for the purpose of possibly doing a Romney-style ordeal. But then again, at the same time, there's a lot of evidence, especially given the fact that this is the Bushes and Paul Ryan who are secretly working with him. However, as I said before, the Electabros will not tell you this. You see, the theory is that we need to go after suburban voters. However, suburban voters don't make up that much of the actual electorate, and to go on top of this, most of them vote Democrat anyways. The belief is that you can replace the Republican voters that you already have in your base with Democrat and independents. The problem is that there's not enough independents to kind of supplant that total. Mitt Romney did that in 2012. He ended up losing bigly to Barack Obama. George W. Bush actually lost independence in 2004, but he had the full backing of his base, and he ended up winning in 2004. Yes, these historical examples are in fact historical, but they do in fact matter. In the case of Donald Trump, you may say he did not get the full Republican base, which is actually true, but he did get most of the damn near all of the independent conservative base, which, by the way, was the original Tea Party base in 2010. But Donald Trump was able to pull enough independents, which he actually won independents, and he was able to pull enough Bernie Sanders support over to get him over against Hillary Clinton. So the Electabros a lot of times love to use that argument of getting more independents, but the truth be told is this right here. As cringe as radical politics can be, and as cringe as even real American politics, which by the way I prefer real American politics, they're actually correct. You have to have your base to get over. All right, this is something that the Electabros do not want to tell you. But let's go ahead and listen to the very first couple of minutes, I guess, of Ben Shapiro's little showdown. I'm pretty sure if you watched it, you may have actually gotten a lot of Trump can't win, Trump can't win. I didn't really watch the full episode, but don't worry, I'll leave it in the description box so that way you guys can come back and say, look, you got that one wrong. But let's just listen to it for a second because you can kind of see exactly where he's going at.
Big day last night. Donald Trump flew from Mar-a-Lago to Manhattan in order to turn himself in to be arraigned. What that means is that later this afternoon, he goes in front of a judge who will plead not guilty. All of this, of course, followed hard on the insane media coverage yesterday, in which we basically got Donald Trump's plane leaving Mar-a-Lago treated essentially like O.J. Simpson's Ford Bronco back during the NBA Finals. It was pretty amazing. So we begin with Trump leaving Mar-a-Lago. A lot of his supporters lined the roads, as you would imagine. Again, it's a bizarrely and horrifically historic moment when the party in power or members of the party in power decide to indict the opposition leader. Right? Donald Trump is, by every available polling metric, the frontrunner in the Republican nomination race. He is the former president of the United States and possibly the future president of the United States. And now he is arrested in New York for crimes that are extremely flimsy. But to pretend that there aren't incentive structures in place that have caused this to happen in the first place, that the left is not doing this for a reason. They are absolutely doing this for a reason. They're indicting Trump on flimsy charges because they had to. Because they've been saying for years that he is a criminal, and they have not fulfilled that promise to their base. Simultaneously, they are hoping to elevate Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential race, and they are achieving that effect. The polling data right now has Trump up significantly in the 2024 primaries. This is presumably exactly what the media want. Again, they are not dum-dums. They know exactly what they're doing. So the money is on their side. The politics is on their side. And folks on the right, obviously, are resonating to Trump's cause because they feel correctly that he is being...
Ben, by the way, was very hard up on Mitt Romney in 2012. Also, something else, too, a lot of the people who are pushing DeSantis the most, especially those on Twitter, were very, very hard up on Mitt Romney in 2012. I can't think of a more bland Republican outside of maybe possibly Bob Dole or John McCain that ran for the presidency and won. George Herbert Walker Bush won in 1988, but George Herbert Walker Bush, even though he came from the much more liberal wing of the party, George Herbert Walker Bush had Ronald Reagan's name to benefit off of, whereas after launching the largest tax increase in American history at that point in time, the American people got tired of it, and Bush lost a good portion of his base to Ross Perot. Yes, I contend that the third-party candidate did in fact cost George Herbert Walker Bush that election in 1992. As a matter of fact, when people love to mention third-party candidates, say that's got nothing to do with costing, Gary Johnson almost costed Trump in 2016. As a matter of fact, I would argue that if Jill Stein was not in the picture to take votes away from Hillary Clinton, Gary Johnson would have costed Donald Trump the election. Also, to go on top of this, I would also argue, and by the way, if you're a liberal and you don't believe this, why don't you go back and take a look at the 2000 election and look at exactly what Ralph Nader did to Al Gore in that state. And to go ahead and add one last point, and this right here is where I'm going to close at. All right, and I want you guys to think about this long and hard. Vivek Ramaswamy is one of the GOP 2024 nominees. He's one of the guys who's running. Okay, well, I meant to say candidates. I didn't mean to say nominees. I meant to say candidates. My bad. Ramaswamy put up a tweet earlier. Now, Ramaswamy was one of the first people to come out and criticize the Trump indictment a few weeks ago. Now, you could say that obviously he's trying to endear himself to the Trump base in case something happens to Donald Trump. I cannot tell you the truth right now. And as hard as I've been on DeSantis, I want you guys to go ahead and know this right now. The state that I live in 2024 is going to have the governor and president both on the ballot. So I've kind of sort of got to vote, and I'm not going to be voting Democrat. So you probably think to yourself, okay, he's probably going to be voting generic Republican up and down the ballot. Well, that's the 99% case that I probably do, and somebody's going to already criticize me if you stuck around long enough to say something about it. But here's the thing. There are a lot of people who live in states like, say, Georgia or Ohio or Iowa or, hell, even Pennsylvania and Michigan, where the governor is not on the ballot to go along with the president. A lot of these are pure Trump voters. If you piss off that crowd and they don't show up to vote, next thing you know, you're going to lose. Like I said before, it's always been kind of my theory was to jilt the Republican base based upon that 2024 Senate map that I was showing you guys earlier. The idea, of course, is to keep one party from having a mandate. It was probably a deal that was made after Barack Obama became president in 2008 between the establishment, because Obama had 59 senators, and of course he had 2 independents that caucused with Democrats to help him get his agenda through, and as a result of it, he made things 10 times worse than what they already are. If you read the book, The Amateur by Ed Klein, you will find out that Democrats, as loyal as they are to Obama, they also did not like him because they thought he was quote-unquote very lazy. The thing that you have to understand in this case is that, and I mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy earlier, Vivek Ramaswamy got attacked by Dave Rubin. He got attacked by Dave Rubin because Dave Rubin thought that Ramaswamy's response undermined DeSantis. I understand that Donald Trump kind of started this little war. I understand that. I get it 100%. But then again, though, if you know Donald Trump by now, you shouldn't be surprised. You really and truly should not be surprised that he did what he did going after DeSantis. He did that to Jeb Bush. Okay, he went into got Jeb Bush at the very beginning, hilariously, in 2016, turned Jeb Bush into a bumbling, stuttering, weak man, and that's how he did it. And I hate to say this, but a lot of DeSantis' attack lines, especially when he come back and said, oh, I'm the only governor to put away a George Poros, I have to say it a certain way, a Poros DA, it sounds a little bit sanctimonious. What you should be saying is, man, what we should be doing is we should be uniting, and then you should also say at the same time, not only should we be uniting, but we need to go out of our way to take out these Poros DAs. Kind of like what Charlie Kirk was saying earlier. Those who are in red states, those who are in purple states, Republicans who have power need to actually wield that power at this moment in time. If you really and truly want to affect things on a political level, you need to do it at the state and local level, which, by the way, I have a feeling that Republican voter base is going to urge a lot of these people to do that. Don't worry, we'll be talking more about that in the Convention of States video, which, by the way, is going to feature a lot of Rick Santorum. We're also going to be talking a little bit about impeachment. Hopefully, I'll have that video out on Friday, and hopefully, I'll have a project out on Saturday. The fact of the matter is this right here. The DeSemps, they're the ones who are getting the most rattled. They are the ones who are going out of their way to say, hey, look, man, we hope Trump gets arrested, and you don't seem to realize that that right there alone will ensure him being the nominee in 2024 because, as I've explained before, these are all state-level convictions, and the federal government refused to touch it. And to go on top of it, I want you to think about something really quick. That mugshot that they did not want, maybe it's possible that the Democrats are saying, look, yeah, it might not be a good idea to give this guy culture hero status. I think that a lot of people are looking at that, okay? I just figure I would throw that out there. Now, there is one last thing I wanted to mention, and I mentioned it at the very beginning of the video, and I forgot to script this in here, but I want to go ahead and kind of go ahead and work on this. I got to do this in between the lawnmower going off outside my apartment. What was Joe Biden talking about earlier when he said we'll use every constitutional method to keep him out of office? Well, the thing is this right here. As I said before, 2 years outside the state statute of limitations. It's basically a great big giant show. Trump goes in there, turns himself in. He understands that all press is good press. He turns right back around after all this, and what does he do? He goes back to Mar-a-Lago, or even if he's held for 30-day confinement in Trump Tower, it doesn't really matter. He can still campaign online. He's still very, very much ahead. He's been benefiting from the polls, and he's been benefiting from the press. Okay, so what can you really and truly do? You can't actually lock him up. If you do lock him up, you got to lock up the Secret Service to go along with it, even though you do have Secret Service agents now willing to testify on the documents thing. It just looks to me like more and more BS. Not to mention the fact that Republicans control Congress now, so the referral would have to come from them. I highly doubt the Republican Congress would do that, especially given the fact that their jobs are on the line in 2024. So I highly doubt that that will occur or that will actually happen. And to make matters worse, it makes you kind of wonder, what exactly is the plan? Well, let's go back to what I was saying earlier about the 2024 map, okay? Let's say Donald Trump does win the election in 2024. Let's say he doesn't win with 270, 272, like Charlie Kirk proposed. Let's say he wins with the number that I proposed. Wouldn't it be kind of odd for Kamala Harris being the VP? Wouldn't it be kind of weird on January the 6th, 2025, or whenever that day is that they certify, which, by the way, is still completely unrealistic because Republicans, if they have the House of Representatives or if they do a 12th Amendment vote, Republicans could still vote Trump in, where it would have to be the Senate to vote Trump's and VP in, but at the same time, though, they may keep Harris in. I don't think they will do that. The fact of the matter is this here. They could very, very well pull off the Legislative Act of, I think, 1877, which is exactly what Trump wanted Mike Pence to do, send it back to the state so that way the state legislature could do that. However, I have a very difficult time seeing them do that. I personally think that what Joe Biden is doing is pretty much what Charlie Kirk said. He's doing everything he can to gin up his base and enthusiasm because nobody's getting paid right now. Everybody is going through a bunch of crap right now. Everybody's money totals are a lot lower. The price of gas is through the roof. There's no real incentive to vote for Joe Biden. And while a lot of people don't want Trump to get reelected, there's a lot of people who don't even want Joe Biden to run or get reelected alone. So you have that problem. All the enthusiasm rests on one side, and this little kangaroo court thing just may intensify the other side to go vote. But then again, though, it has to be Donald Trump or it has to be somebody Trump-like. It's not DeSantis. It more than likely would be someone, say, like a Ramaswamy who would be able to pick up that base, especially seeing how he's kind of sort of extended his olive branch out there to that. You could be in another situation where it's kind of another what moment. Now, guys, here's what I'm going to close on. This is a white pill video. I did this because, quite frankly, I think you guys needed a much, much broader explanation of what is going on. I would advise you guys to please keep the former president in your thoughts and prayers. Keep your next door neighbor in your thoughts and prayers. Keep your enemy even in your thoughts and prayers. Pray for them. I understand that not everybody's going to change overnight. That's not going to happen. But if you pray now and you keep praying, you might see some improvement someone. So once again, thank God we're all alive. Thank God we're still here. Yes, this is a crime. Yes, this is a travesty, what they're doing. But at the same time, though, you have to be able to see through the tunnel and try to find the light. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like the content, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section. I want to hear what you guys have got to say. Please leave a comment. If you stuck around for the full video, I really and truly appreciate that. Also, one more thing to SJWs and Electabros, piss off.
Mickey Mouse, forever